The text message appeared on my phone at exactly 7:43 a.m., just as I was rushing to pack Zara's lunch. 3 words that made my blood run cold. "We need to talk." It was from Mr. Peterson, her school counselor. In 16 years of raising my daughter alone, I had never received a message like that. My hands trembled as I stared at the screen, coffee growing cold beside me, the morning sunlight streaming through our kitchen window suddenly feeling harsh and unforgiving. What could my honor student daughter have possibly done to warrant an emergency meeting? The same girl who still left thank you notes on my pillow after our movie nights, who helped elderly Mrs. Chen with her groceries every Saturday, who had been my anchor through every storm life had thrown our way. Welcome to my channel, where I share real stories with unexpected twists. If you like what you hear, please hit subscribe and give me a thumbs up. It really means a lot to me. Now, let's begin this story. My name is Celeste Martinez, and I thought I knew everything about my 16-year-old daughter, Zara. After all, it had been just the 2 of us since she was a baby. Her father disappeared when the pregnancy test showed 2 pink lines, leaving me to build our life from nothing. I worked double shifts at the hospital, took night classes, and somehow managed to create the stable home I never had growing up. That Tuesday morning started like any other in our small Phoenix apartment. The desert sunrise painted our living room walls in soft orange hues, and I could hear Zara moving around in her bedroom, getting ready for school. She had always been my easy child, responsible, thoughtful, never giving me a moment of real worry. While other mothers complained about teenage rebellion, I counted my blessings. "Morning, Mama," Zara called, appearing in the kitchen doorway. She looked tired, dark circles under her brown eyes that matched mine. Her long black hair was pulled into a messy bun, and she wore her favorite oversized sweater. "You okay, mija? You have been staying up late with homework again?" She shrugged, grabbing an apple from the counter. "Just busy with college prep stuff. You know how it is." I did know. Zara was determined to be the first in our family to attend university. She spent hours on applications, essays, and scholarship research. I was so proud of her drive, even though it meant she had grown quieter lately, more distant. I told myself it was normal. Teenagers need space to become independent. But as I watched her that morning, something felt different. She kept checking her phone, her jaw tense in a way that reminded me of myself when I was worried about bills or work schedules. When I offered to drive her to school, she declined quickly. "I am meeting some friends early for a study group." This was new. Zara had always been more of a solo student, preferring library quiet to group discussions. But I did not push. I had learned to pick my battles carefully with teenagers. After she left, I cleaned our small apartment and prepared for my shift at the hospital. I worked as a surgical technician, a job that required complete focus and steady hands. But that day, I found myself distracted, thinking about Zara's tired eyes and the way she had avoided looking directly at me. The text from Mr. Peterson arrived during my lunch break. I had met Harrison Brooks only once, during freshman orientation. He seemed kind and competent, the type of counselor who genuinely cared about students, but his message sent ice through my veins. I called the school immediately. "Mr. Peterson, this is Celeste Martinez, Zara's mother. I got your message." "Mrs. Martinez, thank you for calling. I would prefer to discuss this in person. Are you available this afternoon? What is this about? Is Zara in trouble? There was a pause that lasted too long. She is not in trouble exactly, but there are some things we need to address together. Can you come in around 4 o'clock? I spent the rest of my shift imagining the worst. Had she been caught cheating? Was she failing classes? The possibilities swirled in my mind like a nightmare I could not wake up from. Zara was my whole world, my success story, proof that hard work and determination could overcome any obstacle. If something was wrong with her, then what did that say about everything I had built? At 3:45, I sat in the school parking lot, hands gripping the steering wheel. Other parents walked past, some looking worried, others chatting casually. I wondered if they ever felt this crushing weight of responsibility, this fear that one wrong move could destroy everything you had worked for. The counseling office smelled like vanilla air freshener and fresh copy paper. Mr. Peterson greeted me with a firm handshake and concerned eyes. He was younger than I expected, maybe in his early 30s, with kind features and a calm demeanor that probably helped nervous students feel safe. Please, sit down, Mrs. Martinez. First, I want to assure you that Zara is a wonderful student. Her teachers speak highly of her character and academic performance. Then why am I here? He pulled out a manila folder and opened it carefully. Yesterday, one of our security monitors noticed some unusual activity in the parking lot. Students gathering in groups, exchanging items quickly, then dispersing. When we reviewed the footage, we saw Zara involved in these exchanges. My heart stopped. What kind of exchanges? We are not certain yet. It could be anything from sharing homework to something more serious. But the pattern is concerning enough that we felt you should be aware. I stared at him, trying to process his words. My Zara, involved in suspicious behavior? It felt impossible, like hearing that the sun had decided to rise in the west. There must be some mistake. Zara would not do anything wrong. She is focused on college, on her future. Mr. Peterson nodded sympathetically. I understand this is difficult to hear. Most parents feel the same way when we have these conversations. But sometimes good kids make poor choices, especially when they are under pressure. Pressure. The word hit me like a physical blow. Had I been pushing her too hard? My immigrant parents had taught me that excellence was the only path to security in America. Work harder than everyone else, be better than expected, never give anyone a reason to doubt your worth. I had passed these lessons to Zara, maybe without realizing the weight they carried. What do you suggest I do? Talk to her, not as a parent ready to punish, but as someone who wants to understand. Sometimes kids get involved in situations that spiral beyond their control. They need help, not judgment. I drove home in a daze, his words echoing in my mind. The apartment felt different when I walked in, like I was seeing it through new eyes. Zara's bedroom door was closed, music playing softly behind it. I stood in the hallway, hand raised to knock, but stopped myself. How do you ask your child if they are lying to you? How do you bridge a gap you did not even know existed? Instead, I went to the kitchen and started making her favorite dinner, chicken enchiladas with green sauce, the recipe my grandmother had taught me. Cooking had always been my way of showing love when words felt inadequate. Maybe tonight, over a meal that connected us to our family history, we could find our way back to honesty. But as I stirred the sauce and listened to her music through the walls, I could not shake the feeling that everything I thought I knew about my life was about to change. Sometimes the most ordinary days hide extraordinary challenges beneath their surface. Dinner that evening felt like performing in a play where I had forgotten my lines. I served the enchiladas with extra care, arranging them on our best plates, the ones with tiny blue flowers that we saved for special occasions. But nothing felt special about the weight pressing against my chest as I watched Zara push food around her plate. "These are really good, Mama," she said, but she had barely taken 3 bites. "You seem tired lately, mija. Is everything okay at school?" Her fork paused midway to her mouth. "Everything is fine, just normal senior year stress, you know?" I had rehearsed this conversation in my head a dozen times during the drive home, but now the words felt clumsy and wrong. "Mr. Peterson called me today." The color drained from Zara's face so quickly, I thought she might faint. Her hand trembled as she set down her fork, and for a moment she looked exactly like the scared little girl who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms. What did he say? He mentioned some concerns about activities in the parking lot, students exchanging things. I kept my voice level, the way I did at the hospital when delivering difficult news to patients. "Zara, I need you to be honest with me. What is going on?" She stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the linoleum floor. "Nothing is going on. They are making a big deal out of nothing." "Then explain it to me. Help me understand nothing." "I cannot." Her voice cracked on the words. "You would not understand anyway. You never understand anything that does not fit your perfect plan." The accusation hit me like a slap. "Perfect plan? Zara, everything I have done has been for you. Every sacrifice, every extra shift, every night I fell asleep over textbooks. It was all to give you opportunities I never had. I never asked for that." The words exploded out of her, years of pressure finally finding a voice. "I never asked you to work yourself to death, or to plan my entire life before I was old enough to have opinions about it." We stared at each other across the kitchen table, the enchiladas growing cold between us. I saw my mother in Zara's defiant expression, the same stubborn set of the jaw that had carried our family through poverty and uncertainty. But I also saw something else, fear, the kind that comes from feeling trapped with no good options. "If you are in trouble, we can fix it together, but you have to tell me the truth." Zara laughed, but there was no humor in it. "The truth? The truth is that your perfect daughter is not so perfect. The truth is that sometimes good intentions lead to bad places. The truth is that I have been trying to solve a problem without disappointing you, and now everything is worse." She ran to her room and slammed the door, leaving me alone with the smell of cooling food and the sound of my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. I sat there for 20 minutes, staring at her untouched plate, remembering the last time we had fought like this. She was 8 years old, and I had refused to let her walk to school alone. She screamed that I did not trust her, that I treated her like a baby. Back then, I could comfort her with hugs and hot chocolate. Now, comfort felt as distant as the stars barely visible through our kitchen window. I knocked on her door later that evening. "Zara, can we talk?" "Go away, Mama, please." I pressed my forehead against the wood, feeling more helpless than I had since those early days of single motherhood, when every decision felt like it could ruin her future. The next morning, she left for school. Before I woke up, I found a note on the kitchen counter. Working late at library. Do not wait up. Her handwriting looked shaky, uncertain, so different from the confident script on her college applications. I called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years. Instead of going to the hospital, I drove to Zara's school and parked across the street, feeling like a spy in my own daughter's life. I watched students arrive in groups, laughing and shoving each other playfully. Normal teenage behavior that I had somehow missed while focusing on grades and scholarship deadlines. At lunchtime, I saw her. She walked quickly toward the back of the parking lot where a small group of students had gathered near a beat-up Honda Civic. Even from a distance, I could see the tension in her shoulders, the way she kept glancing around as if expecting trouble. A tall boy with dark hair handed her something small enough to fit in her palm. She nodded, said something brief, then hurried back toward the building. My hands shook as I started the car. Whatever was happening was real, and it was happening right now while I sat helpless, watching my daughter's life unfold without me. That afternoon, I waited in the school lobby until Zara emerged from her last class. Her face went pale when she saw me, but she walked over with her chin raised, preparing for battle. We are going home. Now. The drive was silent except for the radio playing soft Spanish music that reminded me of my childhood. I thought about my own mother, who had worked 3 jobs to keep food on our table, but never had time to notice when I started making questionable choices. I had promised myself I would be different, more involved, more aware. But somehow I had managed to be both overprotective and completely blind at the same time. Back in our apartment, I sat on the couch and patted the cushion beside me. Sit down, mija. No more running away. She perched on the edge of the cushion as far from me as possible while still technically obeying. I saw you today, in the parking lot. Her face crumpled, and suddenly she was crying, not the angry tears from last night, but the deep, frightened sobs of a child who had been carrying a burden too heavy for her shoulders. Mama, I am so sorry. I never meant for it to go this far. I pulled her against me, feeling her body shake with fear and relief. Tell me everything. Whatever it is, we will figure it out together. Between tears, the story came out in pieces. Lorenzo Valdez, a senior from her advanced placement history class, had asked for her help with college applications. His family situation was complicated. Undocumented parents, no money for application fees, no guidance counselor who understood his circumstances. Zara, with her perfect grades and scholarship research skills, seemed like his salvation. At first, I was just helping him write essays and fill out forms. But then he said he needed money for application fees, and his family could not afford them. So I started giving him some of my savings, the money you put aside for my college expenses. My heart sank. That savings account represented years of careful budgeting, skipped meals, and second-hand clothes. But more than the money, I was devastated by the deception. How much, Zara? About $1,500 so far. But Mama, he was going to pay it back once he got the scholarships. He has amazing grades, and his essay about immigration was incredible. He just needed someone to believe in him. I closed my eyes, trying to process the magnitude of what she had done. Not just the money, but the lies, the secrecy, the risk to her own future for someone else's dreams. And the meetings in the parking lot? He was giving me updates on his applications, and I was giving him more money when he needed it. We met there because... She trailed off, looking ashamed. Because you knew I would not approve. She nodded miserably. You have worked so hard to save that money. I knew you would think I was being stupid and naive, but Lorenzo is not like other people assume. He is brilliant and kind, and he deserves the same chances I have. I sat there holding my daughter, feeling the weight of 16 years of trying to balance protection with empowerment, safety with opportunity. She had learned my lessons about hard work and helping others, but she had also inherited my stubborn independence and my tendency to carry burdens alone. Zara, helping people is beautiful, but giving away money we do not have, lying to me, putting yourself in situations that look suspicious, that is not helping. That is enabling. I know, she whispered. I know it got out of control. But how do I stop now? He is counting on me. As I held her and felt her tears soak through my shirt, I realized that this was not just about money or poor judgment. This was about the impossible weight I had placed on her shoulders by making her my everything, my proof that sacrifice and hard work could overcome any obstacle. She had learned to carry responsibility like armor, even when it was crushing her. The hardest problems are often the ones we create with the best of intentions. The next morning brought news that shattered what little stability we had left. Zara's phone rang at 6:30 a.m., jolting us both from restless sleep. I heard her talking in hushed, panicked tones from her bedroom, then footsteps running to the kitchen where I was making coffee with shaking hands. Mama, we have a problem. A big problem. Lorenzo had been arrested the night before, not for anything related to college applications, but for selling prescription medications he had stolen from his job at a pharmacy. The police had found a notebook in his car with detailed records of money transactions, including several entries with Zara's initials. They think I was buying drugs from him, she said, her voice hollow with shock. They think the money I gave him was for pills, not college applications. I felt the world tilt sideways. My daughter, my honor student who had never even tried alcohol, was now connected to a drug investigation. The phone rang again. Mr. Peterson asking us to come in immediately for a meeting with school administration and possibly a police officer. Mama, I need you to believe me. I had no idea about the drugs. I thought I was helping him with college. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, and saw the truth in her terrified eyes. But I also saw something else that made my chest tight with panic. She still wanted to protect him. Zara, you realize what this means? Your college applications, your scholarships, your entire future could be destroyed because you tried to save someone who was lying to you. But what if he really did need help too? What if the drug thing was separate? Just something he did because he was desperate for money? That was the moment I understood how deep this went. My daughter, who I had raised to be strong and independent, had learned to sacrifice herself for others' problems. She would rather destroy her own life than admit she had been deceived. We are going to that meeting, and you are going to tell them exactly what happened. The truth, Zara. Not the version that protects Lorenzo or makes you look noble. The version that might save your future. The drive to school felt like traveling to our own execution. Zara sat rigid in the passenger seat, staring out the window at the desert landscape that usually comforted us both. I thought about calling in sick to work again, but realized that my job might be the least of our worries now. The meeting was worse than I had imagined. Principal Matthews, a stern woman in her 50s, sat across from us with a police detective and Mr. Peterson. They had printed screenshots of text messages, bank records showing money transfers, and witness statements from other students who had seen Zara and Lorenzo together. "Miss Martinez," Detective Williams said gently, "we understand you might have been an innocent party in this situation, but we need complete honesty about your relationship with Lorenzo Valdez and any money that changed hands." I watched my daughter's face as she made the choice that would define the next chapter of her life. For a moment, I saw her waver, still wanting to protect someone who had used her kindness as a weapon against her. "Mama?" she said quietly, turning to look at me. That single word contained everything: her fear, her trust, her need for guidance at the moment when everything hung in the balance. And I realized that all my careful planning and protection had led to this: my daughter looking to me not for answers, but for permission to save herself. "Tell them the truth, mija. All of it." She did. Slowly, painfully, she described how Lorenzo had approached her, how she had emptied her college savings account, how she had lied to me and met him secretly. She explained her naive belief that she was funding scholarship applications, not drug purchases. With each word, I watched her childhood die a little more, replaced by the hard knowledge that good intentions could have devastating consequences. The police detective took notes, nodding occasionally. When Zara finished, he closed his notebook and looked at both of us with something that might have been sympathy. "Miss Martinez, based on what you have told us and the evidence we have reviewed, we do not believe you were aware of Mr. Valdez's illegal activities. However, this will require further investigation, and you should not have any contact with him or his associates." Principal Matthews was less understanding. "Zara, your actions showed extremely poor judgment. Meeting students off campus for cash transactions, lying to your mother, being secretive about large sums of money. These behaviors are serious concerns, regardless of your intentions." "What does this mean for her college applications?" I asked, my voice barely steady. "That depends on how the investigation concludes. If charges are filed, colleges will need to be notified. If not, it becomes a matter of whether this incident reflects a pattern of poor decision-making." We left the school in silence, both of us emotionally exhausted. In the parking lot, Zara suddenly stopped walking and turned to face me. "Mama, I am so sorry. I ruined everything, did not I?" I looked at my daughter, still my daughter, despite everything, and felt something shift inside me. All the fear and anger and disappointment crystallized into clarity. "Zara, do you know why I came to America?" She shook her head, confused by the change of subject. "I came because I wanted my children to have choices I never had. I wanted you to be brave enough to make your own decisions, even if they were wrong sometimes. But somewhere along the way, I stopped teaching you how to make good choices and started just demanding that you be perfect." Tears started flowing down her cheeks again. I was trying to be perfect. I was trying to help someone and be good, and not disappoint you. And that is exactly the problem, Mija. You were so afraid of disappointing me that you made terrible decisions and then lied about them. You were so focused on being the perfect daughter that you forgot to be a real person who makes mistakes and learns from them. We stood there in the school parking lot, surrounded by the sound of buses and other families dealing with their own crises, and I felt something I had not experienced in 16 years of motherhood. The freedom that comes from admitting you do not have all the answers. I do not know how to fix this, Zara. I do not know if you will still get into college or keep your scholarships. I do not know if this will follow you forever or fade away. But I know one thing. We are going to figure it out together, and we are going to be honest with each other from now on. She hugged me then, not the polite hug of a dutiful daughter, but the desperate embrace of a scared teenager who finally had permission to not be perfect. What happens now? Now we go home. We call the bank and see about getting some of that money back. We research what this means for your college applications. We probably need to find a lawyer, and we start over, with truth this time, instead of protection. As we drove home, I realized that losing control of Zara's life might actually be the first step towards saving it. For 16 years, I had tried to shield her from every possible failure, and in doing so, I had failed to teach her how to survive. Her own mistakes. Rock bottom becomes the foundation on which we rebuild everything that matters. 3 months later, I sat in the same kitchen where this story began. But everything had changed. The morning sunlight still streamed through our windows, but it no longer felt harsh and unforgiving. Instead, it illuminated a different kind of family. One built on honesty instead of protection, trust instead of control. Zara emerged from her bedroom, hair in the same messy bun, but her eyes were clearer now. She had testified for the prosecution in Lorenzo's case, a decision that required more courage than any college application ever could. The experience had been devastating, but also liberating. She finally understood the difference between helping someone and enabling their destructive choices. "Morning, Mama. The acceptance letter from Arizona State came yesterday." She handed me the envelope with steady hands. 3 universities had rescinded their offers after learning about the investigation, but Arizona State had looked at her complete story. The naive mistake, the honest testimony, the community service hours. She had completed while waiting for the case to close. They saw potential for growth rather than just a mark against her character. "Are you happy with this choice?" I asked, though I already knew the answer from the small smile playing at the corners of her mouth. "I am. They have a great social work program, and after everything that happened, I think I want to learn how to help people the right way." The irony was not lost on either of us. Her desire to help others had nearly destroyed her future, but it had also revealed her true calling. She wanted to become a counselor, someone who could guide teenagers through the kind of crisis we had just survived. I poured coffee for both of us, a new morning ritual we had developed. We talked more now about everything, her fears about college, my worries about money, her questions about dating, my memories of her father. The conversations were sometimes uncomfortable, but they were real in a way our relationship had never been before. "Mama, do you think I will ever stop feeling guilty about the money?" We had recovered about half of what she had given Lorenzo through the court's restitution order, but the rest was gone forever. More importantly, we had both learned that money could be replaced, but trust, once broken, required daily rebuilding. Guilt is not always a bad thing, mija. It means you have a conscience, but you cannot let it paralyze you. You made a mistake because you wanted to help someone. That is not a character flaw. It is a strength that needs wisdom to guide it. She nodded, sipping her coffee thoughtfully. We had both been in counseling since the investigation ended, learning how to communicate without the weight of unrealistic expectations crushing our words. I had discovered that my need to control everything came from my own childhood, fear of poverty and powerlessness. Zara had learned that taking responsibility for other people's problems was not kindness. It was a form of arrogance that assumed she knew better than they did about their own lives. "What time is your appointment with Mr. Peterson today?" 2:00. He wants to talk about peer mentoring programs for next year. Harrison Brooks had become an unexpected ally through this crisis. He had helped us navigate the school's disciplinary process and had seen something valuable in Zara's experience. He believed she could help other students avoid similar mistakes by sharing her story honestly. "I am proud of you for considering it. It takes courage to turn your worst moment into something that might help others. I learned that from you, Mama. You never hid from me that life was hard. You just tried to make sure I did not have to face the hard parts alone." That afternoon, while Zara was at school, I cleaned our apartment and reflected on how much we had both changed. I worked fewer overtime shifts now, choosing time with my daughter over extra money in our savings account. The financial pressure was still real, but we had learned to face it together, instead of me carrying it alone while she worried from a distance. My phone buzzed with a text from Zara. "Meeting went great. Mr. Peterson thinks I can help with freshman orientation next fall. Home by 4. I smiled, remembering how different our text exchanges used to be. Before, they were brief reports designed to reassure me that everything was perfect. Now they were actual communication between two people who trusted each other enough to share both good news and problems. When she came home, she was excited in a way I had not seen since before the crisis began. She talked about the mentoring program, about helping incoming students understand the difference between supporting their friends and fixing their problems. She had found a way to channel her desire to help others that felt healthy and sustainable. "You know what I realized today?" she said as we prepared dinner together. "I spent so much time trying to be the daughter you needed that I forgot to figure out who I actually was." "And who are you, Zara Martinez?" She considered the question seriously, stirring the rice while I seasoned the chicken. "I am someone who cares too much sometimes. Someone who wants to fix things that are not mine to fix. Someone who is learning that being imperfect is not the same as being a failure." "That sounds like a person worth knowing." "I think so too." As we sat down to eat, I looked across the table at my daughter and saw not my project or my proof of success, but simply Zara, flawed, honest, and growing into someone I genuinely liked as well as loved. "Mama, do you think we would have figured this out eventually if the Lorenzo thing had not happened?" It was a question I had asked myself many times during the long nights when I could not sleep. "I do not. No, mija. Maybe we would have kept pretending everything was perfect until something even worse forced us to be honest. Maybe you would have gone to college still carrying the weight of being my only source of happiness. Maybe I would never have learned that protecting you from every possible mistake was actually preparing you for none of them. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I am glad we know now, even though it was scary. Me too. That evening, we watched a movie together on our old couch, sharing a bowl of popcorn and commenting on the unrealistic plot developments. It was ordinary and peaceful and exactly what we both needed. For the first time in years, I was not planning her next achievement or worrying about her future. I was simply enjoying the present moment with my daughter. Before bed, she knocked on my door, something she had started doing since we began talking more openly. Thank you for letting me mess up and still loving me anyway. Thank you for trusting me enough to tell me the truth, even when it was hard. As I turned off the lights and settled into sleep, I realized that our story was not really about a teenager who made a costly mistake. It was about a mother and daughter who learned that love sometimes means letting go of control, that strength sometimes looks like vulnerability, and that the most important lessons cannot be taught. They have to be lived. Real love is not about preventing someone from falling. It is about being there to help them get back up, dust themselves off, and try again with the wisdom that only comes from surviving your own mistakes. If this story touched your heart, please hit subscribe and share it with someone who might need to hear it. What would you have done in Celeste's situation? Let me know in the comments below, and remember, we are all just trying to figure out this complicated business of loving each other well.